How you guys doing? My name is Dan, and this is my favorite thing to cook. Today what we're going to be doing is one of my favorite kind of side dishes that we've been doing at the restaurant for a little bit now. It's basically just Brussels sprouts with bacon lardons, but I'm going to be putting a couple of different aromatics, different wines, vinegars, different little flavorings in there to get it to where I like it. Oh yeah, this too. So let's just get right into it. One of the reasons I wanted to do this dish, specifically Brussels sprouts, is because I, and I'm sure just like most of you, have vivid memories of these drab green-gray steamed Brussels as a child, and then through most of your 20s gagged upon hearing that word Brussels sprouts. But when I found out there's actually more than one way to cook these suckers, I was a changed man. Although the gigantic pieces of bacon could have probably helped accelerate that transition. I try to cut them a lot bigger than I think I would need to for a couple of reasons. They do cook down a bit, but mostly I like having the contrast between the chewy interior and crispy exterior, something you don't usually get with bacon. After we get these in, make sure there's a good amount of space in between each piece to get a good sear. Foreshadowing on the Brussels later in the video. But yeah, they'll take a while. This isn't something you can really rush since they're so thick, but we can get started on the onion, but don't get too carried away with prepping anything else right now. Now, you can keep flipping the bacon and sear every single side. You'll get every side good, but I'm getting a really nice sear, nice crust on this right now. So I'm just going to add a little bit of water right now, pop a lid on there, and then let this kind of keep on continuing to cook. And then we're just going to slice up these onions real quick. Actually going to get started on these Brussels because the bacon still just needs a little bit more time. So let's just get started on these real quick while the bacon is finishing. One day the bacon will be finished. There it is. Once you're satisfied with the brownage on the bacon, then we can start cooking the onions. I decided there wasn't enough fat rendered from the bacon, so I just added a little bit more grease. Onions will easily stick, so you want to make sure there's enough fat in there. Now, caramelizing onions. This isn't something you can really walk away from. These suckers will burn easily if you stop paying attention to them. You don't really want to see them swimming in liquid unless you're going to stay close by and keep an eye on them while not necessarily stirring it. But honestly, a little splash every once in a while will keep them from burning. So from this point in the video here, what I would consider a light saute, it takes exactly 7 minutes for these to cook to just a barely caramelized state. Mind you, there are several different stages in cooking onions before you get to caramelize. There's lightly sweated, like you would do for a risotto, translucent, and then sauteed, like we have here. And then even at the caramelized point, where I eventually stop, it's really just barely past the point of a hard saute. You can even keep cooking these for a lot longer. If you're making something like a French onion soup, you're definitely going to go almost twice as long, and the onions will have almost no texture at that point. I'm not going for fully blown out caramelized. I don't really feel like taking the extra time, and I'm also not going for that texture, but that actually is really nice with this dish. I like to add the tiniest of splashes of wine at the end, just to draw up any bits of fond still attached to the pan. And now that we've got all of our mise ready, we are now ready to go on the Brussels. So I'm going to crank the heat because we're going to get a nice hard sear in these bad boys. Dropping these into a hot pan will save you from splatter burns. So I know it looks tedious, but get them all flipped flat side down. And maybe don't overcrowd the pan like me. But then add the oil once it's all flipped over. Then when it sounds like this, you know you've done it correctly. We don't want to move these at all until we're ready to start flipping them, so pop a lid on it and hang out for a minute. I also like to season these before they cook too much. Just a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. Oh yeah. Now's probably a good time to start sipping some of that wine too, since you won't really need a whole lot at the end. But don't get too saucy, we're not done yet. Once you have a decent sear in these, toss them a little bit to prevent them from burning, and then hit them with just a splash of liquid before covering them once again until they're almost cooked through. Let this go for a little bit and pull the lid so all the liquid can now cook out. Once you're satisfied with the doneness of the Brussels, which is entirely up to you, then we can finish this up. But you'll want to wait until this point before adding anything acidic like I'm about to. Wine, lemon juice, Oh yeah, sherry vinegar. We'll add the bacon and the onions too. Oh yeah, I decided to throw in some tahini too. But yeah, when cooking vegetables with anything acidic, bright, vibrant colors will be drastically sucked out if cooked for too long. So you really want to make sure you're doing that at the very end. Of course, I still cooked it a little bit longer than I should have because I decided to add that refrigerated tahini that I'm now frantically trying to whisk into this liquid before tossing with everything else. Also, make sure you check out the recipe in the description since I've been doing a pretty terrible job keeping up with everything that's going in here. So since there obviously wasn't enough going on in there, we're going to hit it with some butter and some smoked mustard, which was what actually ended up stealing the show in this dish, before finishing up with a couple more garnishes because the first 4 weren't enough. What do we have here? Looks like some pickled shallots and some chili oil, both of which you'll see in videos later. Alright, so now would be a good time to clean up your space and dishes because these Brussels are ripping hot and you will definitely burn the crap out of your mouth if you even try to eat these in the next few minutes. So let these cool down a little bit, clean up your dishes so you don't have to worry about that when you're done, take a load off, and let these suckers cool down. Now, I hope you think of Brussels differently after this. I know a lot of people have been put off on these. I know adding all that bacon definitely made this taste a lot better, but it isn't necessary. It does add some nice texture to the dish, same with the onions. I actually don't really even know why I decided to caramelize them. I wasn't initially planning on it, and I probably wouldn't if I was just cooking this without the camera rolling, but this channel isn't about taking shortcuts. That's what work is for. But anyway, if you don't have the bacon and don't feel like caramelizing onions, you can totally skip the first 2 steps and just start with the Brussels and then just doll it up later. Part of the reason my fridge is full of condiments is because they're really easy to prep. Most of them hold almost indefinitely, and they can easily elevate tons of dishes, just like this one. If you lack the confidence sauteing things or have a smoke detector that goes off with the tiniest wisp of smoke, just like mine, and don't feel like blasting these in a pan, then fear not. You can just as easily blast these in a broiler too. It actually is a whole lot easier and is how I usually prep these at home. Tossed with some oil and some seasoning, blasted in the broiler until they start to get crispy, and then finished with the usual 37 condiments. Well, anyway, that's just about all I have for today, so thank you again for joining me where I can show you my favorite thing to cook.